Hi there, and welcome to this month's edition of Real Estate Matters with Clare Girton and myself, Ayse Clare. This is a show about matters in real estate, that real estate matters and is very important, and how real estate affects each and all of us and also our local neighborhoods. For some, real estate can be our largest investment. Both Clare and I are residential realtors focused right here on the main line and surrounding areas. The resale residential market is still moving nice and swiftly. And in this episode, we'd like to speak about new construction and when new construction might make sense for today's buyers, right?
Terrific. It's really great to be here with you today to talk about this, explore new construction because you and I both work with really savvy buyers. There's a lot of information available to buyers. They know what they want, what they don't want. And, when you're looking at resale, in this market, especially when you're perhaps looking at making offers with several buyers, sometimes it helps to think a little bit out of the box. So I think it's going to be fun today to talk about new construction and when that's a good choice for buyers and some of our experiences with new construction. So I'm looking forward to it.
Here too.
All right, so
awesome.
Let's think about it. Say we have buyers, and we do, who have really exhausted a lot of options. They've gone to seen many properties, lots of resale, and they just haven't been able to find the one that fits their budget, their criteria, or they happen to find themselves in a situation where they've made offers and they haven't been accepted or chosen. So at what point, at that point when you're starting to think about real new construction, what kind of things should new buyers think about before they even get down that road?
Yeah, and that's great to say before.
Yeah.
Some buyers, I think, out of the gate naturally think about new construction or new builds. I mean, there's definitely a certain appeal to building a brand new home with all of the specifications that you might want. And some buyers come by that kind of organically after they've looked, as you mentioned, at some resale homes and maybe not finding the right fit or don't feel like they can renovate the home to make it as they wish. It's best to speak about new construction usually before going to see anything whatsoever in regards to new builds.
Any kind of sale, right? So if your buyer consultation, new builds should come up.
Absolutely.
Perhaps you start there.
And maybe so. It's definitely a topic to at least chat about initially and feel out the home buyer to see how much knowledge they have around it, how much knowledge they might not have around it, and if that's something that they have the appetite for, maybe they don't. But new construction is a whole different animal than a residential resale. In our area, being Delaware County and Chester County, Montgomery County, we have kind of pockets of it, and here and there. I think there's several different sectors of the new builds. You can have a property where it's just the lot, raw land for sale. In a neighborhood, a very local neighborhood where I live, different builders are tearing down existing homes because the inventory of raw land is low, and they're knocking them down and building, $1 million plus homes. You can also find new construction that maybe it's just like a one-off lot that comes with a builder. There's also some local builders that build larger communities. I'll say, for example, like the one we know in Edgemont, that's being built at the Edgemont Country Club. It's a local builder, which is awesome. And he's building a nice sized community with several different types of homes, carriage homes, single homes, that back to Ridley Creek State Park. And then there's also our large national builders that I find have less choices in regards to maybe the style of the home. yet they do this day after day after day, and know the process really well and the time frame usually around that process.
When the choice comes in that they're more available and they're more readily available.
Typically.
So you could probably close on a product quickly if you went to a national builder that is building out a project.
Yeah, and typically with national builders, build time can be 4 to 6 months out from signing of contract, and typically the builder's contract. Of course, there's Mother Nature to think about, but their process is, much more systematic than maybe a local builder. And sometimes national builders and also like larger local builders, they'll have homes that have been built and now they're looking for a buyer. So the time frame to get into those could be maybe 2 months, if not less than.
So that spec building, is that
exactly, where the builder's chosen the upgrades already, and then the buyer's going to come in and just buy it as it stands.
And oftentimes those spec models, let's say, are built so that people can come in and tour them and
for sure
see them. And so that sometimes you're buying a model.
Yeah, which is kind of cool because for the buyer folks that aren't so imaginative, which there's a lot of us like that, when you're building new, you're seeing a lot on paper. And that can be very challenging for people who can't really envision what the floor plan is going to look like, how exactly what their view is going to be. That can be quite challenging for people who lack vision. And then there's folks who can build a home out on paper, because that's what you almost always do in new construction, and already have that vision and are willing to maybe take that little bit of that gamble.
Go back to something you mentioned. You said a one-off. What do you mean by that? A one-off lot or build?
Oh, right. So a one-off could be maybe a local builder building, and there's a lot left in a neighborhood, just one last lot left.
Oh, I see.
And that builder just wants to kind of close out that community, and lot for sale, as you wish, whatever you want to do
maybe
on it.
Perhaps the builder's moved on to another project.
Absolutely.
And then you have, kind of the flag lot that was left and didn't. So there are those cases. That's what you were referring to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying.
No, and then let's go back again, talk about the process, whatever you choose for new build, or if you're going that way. How does representation work for new builds in all those scenarios? A lot for sale, in a one-off lot, extra builder, small builder, development, national builders?
Yeah, great question. So often in any new construction purchase, the buyer can always have their own independent representation, typically paid for, by the builder or the seller of the lot or the new construction community.
So say that again. So just to get clear, because I think sometimes people don't know this, is that representation is typically, not always, everything's negotiable, typically sponsored, paid for by the seller or the builder to the buyer's agent.
Correct. And so often sometimes buyers feel that they need to compensate their realtor when it's, maybe 95% of the time the seller is paying their agent or their realtor and the buyer's realtor. And that's the same in new construction. The kind of caveat to that is, when you're purchasing real estate, it is quite exciting. And there's a lot of energy that comes with that. And as a home buyer, you want to ensure that you're understanding and knowing all of your choices. And so you might run and go to that open house that the builder is having, Saturday, Sunday, 12 to 4. And, you left your realtor back here. And if you go into those sales sites on your own, you're almost automatically deemed, if you should then purchase in that community, as, the builder is going to represent you. One of their site agents will represent you. And so you've kind of lost that opportunity or that flexibility to have your own representation when you're working with that builder and building your home.
So talk a little bit more about representation in terms of a buyer's interest. So you mentioned, buyers are excited. They're moving forward to kind of a day in the future. But sometimes representation is actually just kind of, outlining choices. And that can be done a lot of different ways.
It sure can. As the builder's representative, they might not be more willing to want to negotiate with a home buyer, of course, depending on the market. But maybe there were a couple of extra upgrades that the buyer wanted. The the builder's representation is going to say, well, just ask the builder, for that if they will throw it in. But maybe your independent agent might be more willing to.
So for clarification, it could be helpful. Yeah. At the same time, a builder's agent really knows the product inside and out.
Without a doubt.
So it's just an interesting way to think about it, of what really is taking place when you're working with a big, large builder.
Yeah, or for any builder.
Any builder for that matter.
Yeah, great point.
And then we talked a lot about. I know, is when we haven't really touched on, so you're going into a big builder, say a big builder or a medium local builder, and costs. When you're working with buyers, you usually come in with a budget. And for resale, that budget comes pretty close to where you look. If you're looking at $600,000 houses, your budget is $625 to cover costs and things. So let's talk a little bit about how that works for new build.
Yeah, often when a home buyer has their search criteria set, it's often, set really hard with pricing at the bottom and the top of the budget. And often in that criteria, you might have a couple of new construction homes that fit that price criteria, or so one thinks. Typically that price of the new construction is often marketed as the base price of a home. And nothing wrong with that. You can get a beautiful, awesome, brand new home at a base price. You still get your kitchen, you still get your bathrooms, your
roof,
door,
windows, yes.
Check, heat, air. However, often when people build, they really envision all the things they've ever wanted in their next home. And so that can take the price up when maybe the builder is giving, your traditional, oak floor, but however the buyer might want, a wider plank flooring, hand scraped, all across the first floor, but the builder's only giving it in the foyer, let's say.
And it could be easy to get caught in a dream, right? Where you go in, you see it, you see the base, and actually probably to your point about buying a model, you may actually do okay by buying the model because you're not getting the choices.
Yes, it's a little bit more fixed. You're getting new, maybe not exactly the choices of what you want.
But you might even be getting upgraded because the models might not be.
Absolutely.
So that's another interesting point.
Yeah.
But so it can get ahead. You can get ahead of yourself.
You can, and another thing to think of in pricing with the new construction homes is something called a lot premium. And a lot premium is often put on lots in a community that might have a more special setting than maybe the one right at the entrance of the community, where that might side to the main road, where all the cars coming into the community are going to pass. But let's say somebody wants something at farther end of the community in a cul-de-sac backing to woods. Maybe the builder might put a $50,000 lot premium on it, or a $30,000 lot premium.
You have to count that in on top of the base price.
Yes, and not even talking about the upgrades or bump outs on the home.
What is the rule of thumb for would you say, for base price to think about, averagely?
Yeah, so often I like to take the base price and add at least 10%, maybe 25% of the base price to the purchase price is maybe where the budget might come in. I've seen less, I've seen more.
Sure.
Every builder, as part of the base price, is going to offer something different in regards to the finishes, depending on where the market is. Some builders at a base price will give you a finished basement. Some builders will give you upgraded cabinetry. Some builders might give you hardwood all across the first floor. Not always the case, depending on the neighborhood, how the market is going. So you need to figure out what's included in the base price. Are you happy with that? Are you hoping for a little bit more in only certain areas, or are you hoping for a lot more in all areas of the home? So it's not just finishes, not just lot premium, but often you can change the whole front elevation of the home. You didn't want the standard vinyl siding. You wanted, the hardy board siding. You wanted a bump out off of the breakfast room, which is extra, extra, extra. So it can easily and quickly take the price up. But a base home can be quite beautiful, and it's just as new as the upgraded home.
So a little like buying a new car.
Could be.
Yeah, buy a new car and bells and whistles you add on, and it changes the price.
Yes, it does. And one thing to also note is the taxes might be different on new construction. Because it's so new, it's typically the real estate taxes are based on the new price, which is the price after closing. So when you're at the closing table, you're paying taxes just based on the land and not based on the land plus the improvement being the home. So only until after closing will your actual taxes be determined. And whenever you're building new, you can always do a one-time appeal, right, on the taxes, or actually on the assessment. And then thereafter, if you choose to, you can typically do an appeal once a year, every year. But typically new construction taxes are higher than maybe a 30-year-old home of the same size.
It's a reason why we ended up with a reassessment in Delaware County.
Perhaps,
because of the new construction.
Yes,
and,
I think so.
That's a very good point, because you don't really think about that when you're going into, here's the price of the house, here are the taxes, but that is subject
for
to
a
change.
resale home.
Yeah, for resale, that's subject to change for new construction. Excellent point. Something to think about.
And exactly that. So there's so much more that can be fixed when you're purchasing a resale home. Fixed meaning the taxes are already in place, the purchase price is already in place, and but when you're buying new, there's a couple more nuances that you might need to estimate for until the project is complete. Yeah.
A lot of good points. All right. So Ayse, you and I, recently you shared with me a story of a new construction project that you worked alongside with buyer clients. And, I'm really interested in hearing this story and asking you some questions.
Yeah. Had a great couple. They had previously, I call it right-sized. Their kids were raised, their children were raised, and they moved on to maybe lower maintenance type of home, exterior wise, but maybe even slightly larger interior square footage inside. They purchased that new from a somewhat national builder, and so they had the 9-foot ceilings and the remote fireplaces and the beautiful cabinetry, beautiful upgraded tile, laundry room by the bedrooms, huge walk-in closets.
Did you help them with that purchase?
I didn't know them at that time.
Okay.
But you thought this was going to be their long-term home for the time being.
How long were they there?
They were there for about 13 years.
Oh, okay. So significant, decent amount of time.
Yeah, significant amount of time, and kind of moving on to their second careers,
right,
so to speak, retired from their main professions. And, they got this itch to want to purchase or move to a dream home of theirs. And that's always, often people move out of need. And then this was just a really desire for them. And they were in a position to purchase their dream home, which it was really incredible being a part of that. And interestingly enough, their dream home happened to be back to a single home, not just a single home, a Victorian home that came with ground. And when we think of Victorian homes, we often think of
existing, resale.
Yeah, sure. And the age of the Victorian homes. They're not 30 years old, they're not 20 years old.
They're 100 years old.
Yeah,
yes.
if not more.
Right.
So it was just a very different.
Okay, so let me backtrack a little bit, just because I don't want to get lost. This couple had right-sized, love that term, and they had lived in a new build, and they came to a place where they had really enjoyed the amenities of a new build, and they came to a place where they really wanted their dream home. And you did look at some resale Victorians.
We did, thank you. We did take a look at some resale Victorians. Online that may have not been in their budget, and then in person that were in their budget. And I think that the reality of what the Victorian home offered them maybe didn't match their reality of the home.
What do you mean by that? What they wanted in the design of the home they didn't want a wet basement or something that might come with a real Victorian home.
The knob and tube wiring that might come with that. Having come from a newer
systems
home.
that are roofs and gutters that need replacing and
and I think a Victorian home traditionally has a more compartmentalized floor plan. You know, your parlor, you know, the kitchen was maybe smaller and tucked away, and but not what they were used to for the past 13 years.
So they ended up deciding, okay, we're going to build one.
Yeah, after several discussions and outings and tours and conversations, we spoke about maybe building something new. And so that was interesting and kind of enlightening. And where did we find building a new Victorian? Because I don't know about you, but I haven't seen very many new Victorian homes in our area. It was a little bit out of my realm, and so I was able to reach out to a couple local kind of developing type of realtors in our market who had made several suggestions. And one of those suggestions was to see if there was a builder, local builder, that maybe was at the tail end of the project, that wanted to maybe just sell off some land. And lo and behold, we did find a builder doing just that in the area that they were looking in. And this builder was selling just about 3 acres, just empty land. It was the last lot in a neighborhood that he was building, small, very small cul-de-sac. And he was willing to listen to
their requests.
And have those discussions with us, which was very exciting. And they ended up going online as part of the discussions to find a Victorian floor plan that was new. And those plans happened to be from Florida, but they really loved the features that this particular home had.
Some of the features were that made it Victorian.
Right, sure, the scallops, around the front of the home, the kind of peaked roof, porches,
covered porches on 3 sides, or
a lot of those.
The trim work.
Yeah, and interesting enough, it was most of the exterior feature that, now that I think about, that lend itself to Victorian, not so much the interior. Going in, it was more of your, new construction home.
So then they found that exterior and the interior, and the builder agreed. So they brought that, he started in on it, and
and as we started, he realized that, okay, the plans were from Florida, where they build things differently and maybe with extra measures for hurricanes and whatnot. And so he had to kind of modify and interpret some of the plans along the way, in order to fit Pennsylvania building code, and because some things were not necessary, and why pay that extra expense if we're not dealing with that weather here. Along the way, the home buyers, it seemed like we were out of our element a little bit. The builder was a little bit out of his element, and the buyers decided to bring in an architect, which turned out to be wonderful from the standpoint of just giving them additional options. The builder was really focused on said floor plans and just kind of working through those, where here enter the architect was able to add in additional options that the buyers may have wanted considered along the way, because this was going to be their long-term home, things that we wouldn't have otherwise considered.
So that probably helped to make, you said that this process took 18 months by the time you were all finished.
Yeah, and as we said before, traditionally, a new build might take 4 to 6 months.
Right.
And so this process was 3 times that.
A little longer, and when you a little bit longer. And when they brought privately in the architect, they ended up sponsoring the architect's fees, and the builder, they were able to, and you were there available through the whole process to help that process go forward and coordinate communication between buyers, architect, builders.
Yeah, a lot of communication. There were numerous phone calls, numerous email discussions, numerous sit downs, all together with all parties. Bringing in the architect, I do think, extended the time frame of the build, but it really had the buyers think about where they were spending their money, how they were spending their money, and really getting focused on additional options that we might not have otherwise thought of.
Right.
Something like geothermal heating, which was one of his ideas, and really kind of just double checking that what the builder was doing was in line with what the buyers wanted. So, while it did extend time, it really brought some kind of like a full circle, and we really weren't missing any elements of this new build. But it was a challenge, without a doubt, and lots of communications. But in the end, the buyers couldn't have been more satisfied and pleased with all of their choices.
So it was worth it to have the time frame go a little bit longer for the buyers. And at the end of the day, at the end of the 18 months, and they've moved in, and you've seen them and talked with them, they got what they exactly wanted. They did get their dream house.
They did, despite, also dealing with all of that, and also their home sale along the way, and dovetailing that in, and maybe having some interim housing needed.
Right. Which we spoke about in a different episode.
Yeah.
Right? And you got that accomplished.
We got that accomplished. Having visited them and getting all settled in, and they were just so pleased that they could sit on their back porch or their front porch on their hanging swing. And
what they visioned.
Yeah, drinking coffee and watching their dogs play and seeing the neighboring pig, in the yard. It was everything, and they could have asked for, and then some. So while there were some pains along the way, it was worth it. It really did seem like it was worth it.
So of all the things we've talked about today, I would say my biggest takeaway is new builds are something to totally think about. New construction is not scary. It is an option, and it's something that we all should think about as buyers and even sellers.
For sure. So having your proper representation, having those proper people in your corner when you are building the new home is so important. And there was so many other things that we could have talked about today.
Sure.
Designers, and when you're picking finishes, and
next show, right?
Perhaps.
So that was really helpful. I really enjoyed that conversation.
With the limited inventory, as you said, it is absolutely building new is absolutely should be a consideration for some folks.
Excellent. All right. Thanks.
Thanks for discussing it with me, Clare.
That's great.
Yeah.